Mankind likes to believe that there are no monsters, that we have always ruled the world. It is not so. Scarlet Wish lived the hype, not because she believed her own bullshit. Scarlet lived the hype because she knew she was a fraud. She was terrified someone would notice. Scarlet's real name had been Melissa Schmidt. Melissa had been a divorced, homeless nobody. She worked as a housekeeper in a cheap hotel. She slept in a shelter. She had no friends, no prospects, and no car. Her only important possession had been her trusty laptop, which she'd used to watch murder documentaries and post trashy romance novels online. She never expected anyone to notice her story. It was just a basic urban fantasy about a psychic teen girl who falls in love with a ghost. Barely better than fan fiction. She'd written the trilogy because it was fun, and because writing let her live in her own head, far away from what passed for her own pathetic life. Writing had been a coping mechanism when she had nothing else. Now it was her salvation, and her curse. The Midnight Medium trilogy had been published. It had exploded onto the bestsellers lists. She even had studios bidding on movie rights. In a few short months, Scarlet went from a homeless hotel worker to a big-time author swimming in dough. She was pretty sure she didn't deserve it. The books weren't even that good. Deserved or not, Scarlet had been showered with a life-changing amount of money. It was a second chance, and Scarlet took that chance and ran. She moved to a different state. She had her name legally changed to her pen name. She bought a house and a car and a bunch of fancy clothes. Scarlet was a fraud, and she knew it. She had refused to go on a book signing tour. The thought of meeting her fans in person was terrifying. The thought of meeting anyone was terrifying. Scarlet almost never left her house, but she still dressed like she was going to be on TV. She wore dark eyeliner and red lipstick, designer skirts, and fishnet stockings. She styled her red hair and made sure her nail polish was up to snuff. Scarlet had a $2,000 purse she could never find and leather boots that made her an inch taller. Every morning she dressed herself to the nines and sat in front of her trusty laptop. Then she stared blankly at the screen for about 8 hours. The publisher wanted more books. Scarlet wanted to write more. She really did. It was too much. Writing had been Scarlet's escape, her therapy. Now it was her job. It was her job, and it was too much. People expected things from her now. Great big things. It was overwhelming. Her mind went blank every time she touched her keyboard. The house she'd chosen didn't help. It was a big Victorian-style place, 2 floors and a basement with more than she'd ever need. It was also haunted. Scarlet had specifically looked for a haunted house. It fit the vibe she was going for. Scarlet had believed in ghosts, but she believed in them the same way she believed in UFOs, as something that might be real, but not as something she'd ever see for herself. The last few months had proved her wrong. It was a problem. Scarlet heard the slam of a door. She wandered out of her office and into the hallway. "Abigail?" she called. "Is that you?" Abigail didn't answer. She never did. Abigail was the name of the woman who'd been murdered in Scarlet's new house. It was said you could see her sometimes, floating down the hallways and weeping. Scarlet had never seen Abigail in person, but a lot of strange things had happened since she moved in. The door to Scarlet's bedroom was closed. It had been open a minute ago. Scarlet opened it again and looked inside. She saw a rumpled, unmade bed, a floor littered with clothes, and a few empty boxes of wine. Nothing strange, nothing to worry about. Scarlet's anxiety spiked. She tried to calm herself down. It was just a ghost. Just a ghost. It wasn't Paul. Paul was 3 states away, and he didn't know where she lived now. Scarlet was safe. She was safe. Scarlet didn't feel safe. She glanced back at her office. To hell with it. She wasn't getting anywhere with her writing anyway. Scarlett went down to the kitchen and got herself a glass of wine. She pulled out her phone and checked her messages. Her mom had sent another 29 texts. The woman alternated between cursing Scarlett, making her feel guilty, and asking for money. It was exactly what Scarlett expected from her mother. It should make her angry. It should. Mostly it just made Scarlett feel small. Scarlett knew she should block her mother. She just couldn't bring herself to do it. There was one text from an unknown number. It was only 4 words. The words were, "I found you, bitch." The text sent a wave of terror burning up Scarlett's legs. She hunched in on herself. It didn't have to be him. It could be a crazed fan, or a reporter again. Scarlett wanted to believe it wasn't Paul. She knew that it was. It was him. He'd found her. Or found her phone number at least. What should she do? She could move again. She didn't have enough money left to buy a whole new house, but she could find an apartment somewhere. She could run. Scarlett didn't bother calling the police. It was a waste of time. The police didn't do anything when Paul tried to kill her the first time. They didn't do anything when he violated the restraining order or kicked down the door to her old apartment and stabbed her. They wouldn't do anything this time either. The police wouldn't help. They didn't give a shit. Maybe the cops in Minnesota were different, but Scarlett doubted it. She was on her own. Scarlett sat in the kitchen drinking wine. She should be packing, or driving off, or something. She knew that, but she just sat, shaking and miserable. Her fear screamed at her to move, to do something. Depression and anxiety told her to stay where she was. Why should she do anything? What could she do anyway? If she ran, he'd just find her again. Scarlett didn't know how long she'd been sitting there when the doorbell rang. Scarlett jumped. The doorbell? Why would anyone be... Oh no. The appointment. Scarlett had forgotten. The antics of Abigail had gotten a lot worse in the last month. They'd caused Scarlett to make a desperate move. She'd gone on the internet and reached out to her fans, asked for help. She'd been flooded with responses, but one person in particular had been recommended, a person who had agreed to come meet with her. Scarlett forced herself to go to the door. She looked through the peephole. What she saw was mostly reassuring. It was a short, dumpy older man. He had a tweed suit and glasses. He was mostly bald. He was carrying a small briefcase. Scarlett opened the door. The man greeted her with a professional smile. "Miss Wish, I presume?" His voice was soft and surprisingly low, with clipped enunciation of a professional speaker. "That's me," said Scarlett. "Are you Professor Kelly?" "I am," said the professor. He held out a hand. Scarlett took it. He gave a firm, big, professional handshake and let go. "It's nice to meet you, Miss Wish. My daughter is a big fan." "Thank you," Scarlett said brightly. She wasn't feeling particularly bright at the moment, but there was no reason for the professor to know that. Her eyes snapped to a car coming down the street, a beat-up-looking Ford Bronco. A closer look told her the driver was female, an older lady, no one to worry about. Professor Kelly noticed. He also noticed he hadn't been invited inside. "You seem uncomfortable, Miss Wish. If you'd prefer," he frowned, then continued, "we don't have to speak inside your home. We can go somewhere more public. A cafe, perhaps?" "No!" Scarlett said sharply. "Go outside? In public?" Scarlett took a quick breath and wiped the panic off her features. "No, that won't be necessary, Professor. Please come in." Scarlett opened the door wider and stepped back. She watched Professor Kelly take in the living room. She flushed. Maybe she should have cleaned up a little. "Sorry for the mess," she told him. I forgot today was Wednesday." Professor Kelly gave her a reassuring smile. "It's quite all right, miss. I've seen much worse." Scarlett led the professor into the kitchen. "Can I offer you something?" she asked. "A beer, maybe?" "No, thank you," said the man. He took a seat at the kitchen table and opened his briefcase. He pulled out 3 books. "You know, I don't usually do this anymore. Make house calls, I mean. But Brianna is such a fan. She'll be over the moon when I give her these." "I'm happy to help," Scarlett told him. The professor passed over the books and a Sharpie. You said her name is Brianna? Can you spell it for me? Once Scarlet had signed the books, the professor tucked them back into his briefcase. Very well, Miss Wish. Tell me about the house. Call me Scarlet, said the woman. In that case, you can call me Theodore, said the professor. Tell me about the house, Scarlet. Okay, Scarlet nodded. I moved in about 4 months ago. Nothing happened at first. Then after a couple of weeks, I started to hear a knocking sound. Not often. Every other night or so. The professor nodded. Scarlet continued. I thought it was nothing at first. Just, old house noises. But then I started to hear other stuff. Footsteps sometimes. Doors would open and close by themselves. Things would get moved around. I've come downstairs a couple of times to find all the chairs stacked up on top of the kitchen table. Psychokinetic activity, said the professor. I see. The air gets cold for no reason, said Scarlet. Really cold. And I wake up with bruises. She rolled up her sleeve of her blouse, revealing a bruise shaped like a handprint on her upper arm. Like this one, see? The professor leaned forward and looked at the bruise. He gave a slow nod. He didn't look impressed. Scarlet frowned at the man. You don't believe me, do you? On the contrary, Scarlet, the professor disagreed. Your case is not uncommon. He frowned. Well, it is uncommon, but it's not unheard of. Really? Scarlet perked up a little. You've seen this before? Yes, said the man. A few times. I'll tell you what I told them. You should leave. You should leave just as soon as you can. Today, if possible. So it is a ghost, said Scarlet. A real ghost. She thought it was, but she hadn't expected anyone to believe her. The professor did. The thought made her feel better. Validated. No, said Professor Kelly. It is not a ghost. Scarlet gave the man a confused look. The professor explained. What you think of as ghosts are, they're more like a psychic imprint. Memories, you could say. Memories? Scarlet's frown deepened. Ghosts are... The professor thought for a moment. All right, it's like this. Have you ever walked into a place and felt an emotion, like a house felt sad or happy? You mean feng shui? Scarlet asked. In a manner of speaking, said Professor Kelly. Strong emotions leave an impression. Over time, those impressions build a sort of energy around the place, like an aura. Enough similar emotions over a long enough time will create an imprint that people can feel. Okay, Scarlet said slowly. I get that. Ghosts are similar, said the man. They are impressions, memories. Ghosts manifest in a lot of ways, but they always follow a set pattern. The pattern does not change. You might see a misty form drifting around a room, but you won't see it turn and try to talk to you. It might interact with the world, but it will only do so in a specific way that never changes. Abigail changes all the time, said Scarlet. Exactly, the professor nodded. This Abigail doesn't follow a pattern. It's interacting with you directly. That means it's not a ghost. It's a spirit. A spirit? Scarlet prompted. Spirits are... The professor shrugged. Well, they're a lot of things. Some are the souls of the deceased. Some are something else entirely. My colleagues and I have cataloged a wide range of entities. Colleagues? Scarlet's eyebrows went up. I didn't think there were a lot of occult professors. We don't advertise, said Professor Kelly. And technically, I'm a physics professor. He steepled his fingers and leaned forward. It's not really an organization or anything. I just know a few others who understand that science and religion and the occult are all parts of a greater whole. They're ways to understand the world and turn that knowledge into power. Power? Scarlet asked. Of course, said the man. Science gives us tools to change our environment. Mysticism is full of spells and rituals to change ourselves and the world around us. And faith? Professor Kelly leaned forward. Scarlet saw something fervent and furious burning behind his eyes. Religion is the most audacious power there is. What is a prayer, Scarlet? I don't know, Scarlet told him. I'm agnostic. His voice was deathly quiet. A prayer is an attempt to make a god do things for you. Okay. Scarlet had clocked the man as harmless when she let him in. Now she wasn't so sure. But I digress. The professor leaned back in his chair, resuming the calm demeanor. The point is, the entity in this house is a spirit, a poltergeist. Judging from your bruises, I would say it is hostile. Is there something you can do? Scarlet asked. I'm doing it, said the professor simply. I'm advising you to leave. That's not very helpful, Scarlet told him. Miss Wish, Professor Kelly leaned forward again. In 4 months, the entity has reached the point where it can physically harm you. That is a rare and dangerous thing. Hauntings are normally a matter of slow escalation, usually over the course of years. The events you are experiencing will get worse, and quickly. His voice was grave. Your best chance is to leave now and hope the spirit does not follow. Follow? Abigail might follow her? What if she does? The professor reached into his briefcase and pulled out a business card. He passed it over. If it does, contact me immediately. I know a few practitioners who might be able to help. He grimaced. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Exorcisms are dangerous, and the success rate isn't high. I see. Scarlet took the card. It looked nice, professional. She set it back down on the table. I guess I'll start looking for a new place. The sooner the better, said the professor. He reached for his briefcase, then paused. Scarlet, can I offer you one more piece of advice? Please do, said the woman. Stay away from haunted houses. Professor Kelly frowned. I researched this place before I came here. There were a few rumors and sightings, but nothing like the events you've described. It might be a coincidence that the spirit just became active, but it might mean something about you as empowering it. Me? How could Scarlet be empowering Abigail? She wasn't anything special. Why? Scarlet choked off the question as a wave of cold hit her. Goosebumps trickled along her skin. Her breath misted. The professor froze. His eyes went wide. I think we should... He cut off as mostly empty wine box hit him in the head. Some of the wine spurted out onto his tweed suit. He stood quickly, gathering up his briefcase. I didn't do that, Scarlet reassured him. I know, said Professor Kelly. It would seem I am unwelcome. The professor ducked. A glass soared over his head and shattered against the wall. He held his briefcase in front of him like a shield. I'm sorry, Miss Wish. I think it's time for me to leave. A steak knife came next. The man blocked it with his briefcase. The knife stabbed into it, quivering. Scarlet shouted, Abigail, stop! Don't address the entity, the professor snapped. Follow me. He ran for the door. Professor Kelly was surprisingly spry for an old man, or maybe he was just motivated. He was out of the house in seconds. Scarlet followed him onto the porch. The professor glanced around worriedly, but Abigail didn't do anything else. I'm so sorry, Professor, Scarlet told him. No need to apologize, said Professor Kelly. He grimaced. I strongly advise against going back inside that house. Scarlet looked back through the open door. Abigail had subsided. All my stuff is in there, she informed him. Nothing in that house is worth your life, said the professor. All my stuff is in there, Scarlet repeated. Maybe she could do without her phone or her car keys, but her laptop? No way. She had to go back. I'm serious, Scarlet, said the man. That spirit has enough power to manifest and throw objects. It might already be strong enough to possess you or kill you outright. Spending another minute in that house could be fatal. Scarlet didn't know what to say to that. She decided to change the subject. Why did you tell me not to talk to Abigail? Professor Kelly looked like he wanted to argue some more. Then he sighed. Most spirits never gather enough power to affect the physical world. The ones that do grow stronger the more attention they receive. Attention? Scarlet frowned. She'd been paying attention to Abigail since she moved in. A lot of attention. She'd been talking to the ghosts since she moved in, sometimes with the Ouija board. Abigail hadn't answered, but Scarlet had talked to her all the same. They feed on it, the professor explained. Spirits become better able to manifest the more attention they receive. Affecting the physical plane takes a lot of power. It's why most hauntings escalate slowly. Oh, Scarlet scratched her head. She didn't know what to say. Well, this has been an enlightening experience. The professor jerked a steak knife out of his leather briefcase. He handed it back to Scarlet. Once again, I strongly advise you to leave. It was nice meeting you, Miss Wish. I wish you the best of luck. With that, he turned and walked away. It was nice meeting you too, Scarlet called after him. She looked down at the steak knife in her hand. Abigail had tried to kill the man. Would she try to kill Scarlet too? Scarlet shook her head and went back inside. She put the knife back in the sink and found another wine box. It was stupid. She knew it was stupid. Scarlet should grab her laptop and a change of clothes and get the hell out. She just couldn't right now. There was too much. Scarlet sat and drank and let her body shake. She woke up several hours later. It was dark outside. She blearily raised her head off the kitchen table. Idiot! Did she really just drink herself to sleep after all that? Something slammed into the front door. Scarlet jumped. The sound came again. That must have been what woke her up. Abigail? Scarlet called. Is that you? A third strike splintered the door frame. It wasn't Abigail. Someone was kicking down Scarlet's door. Scarlet blinked in confusion for a moment. Then she quailed. Oh God. One more kick crashed the door open. A man stood in the doorway. He was average height with a stubbly beard, a beer gut, and thick, meaty hands. It was Paul. I found you, bitch. The man glowered as he stepped into the house. Scarlet froze. A little voice in her head told her to run. She didn't. She just stared at the man. Paul stepped closer. Fury rolled off him like a storm cloud. Did you think you could hide forever? Paul? Scarlet stammered. Finally, she managed to kick her body into motion. She slid off her chair and started to back away. There was a back door on the other side of the kitchen. It was locked, but it was close. Scarlet didn't think she'd make it, but she was going to try. Paul, the man mocked. He loomed closer. You can't be here, Scarlet told him. It was less a warning and more a denial of reality. She backed up a little more. I told you, Paul growled. I told you I'd find you. He stepped closer, too close. I told you what would. Scarlet bolted for the back door. At least, that was the plan. A hand clamped down on her arm like a vice. Paul jerked her to a halt. She looked back, trying to twist her wrist out of his grip. Paul yanked her closer, close enough to smell the vodka on his breath. His fist smashed her nose flat with a terrible crunch. The impact knocked Scarlet to the floor. I told you, snarled the man. Scarlet tried to get up, to scramble away. Her body didn't respond. Paul seized her by the hair. He pulled her up to a sitting position, then slapped her hard enough to knock her back down. Help! Scarlet wheezed. She took a breath and yelled, Help! Somebody help me! Oh yeah, said Paul. Call for help. See if it works this time. He kicked her in the stomach. Scarlet curled in on herself. Hell, I'll do it with you. He kicked her again, then shouted, Help! Somebody help this bitch! Help! Scarlet gasped. She knew it was a waste of time. No one had ever helped her before. This time wouldn't be different. Scarlet had no one. That's why she spent all her time talking to an evil spirit. Wait, an evil spirit? A flash of hope shot through Scarlet. She drew in a breath and shouted, Abigail! Abigail, help! Abigail? Paul snorted. You got somebody else here? He raised his voice. Abigail? Come on out, bitch! I'll do you too! He cocked his head, listening. Then he kicked Scarlet again. Come on out! He waited a moment, then grabbed Scarlet by the hair again. Either your friend's not here, he hissed, or she's too much of a pissant to come out of hiding. A wash of cold slid over Scarlet. Her arms prickled with goosebumps. Paul frowned, a hint of confusion overtaking his murderous snarl. Then a dinner plate hit him in the head. What the? Paul dropped Scarlet. He looked around the kitchen. He didn't see anyone. Who threw that? He demanded. Who threw that? I'm gonna... Paul flew upwards. He let out a yelp as he slammed into the ceiling. He stayed there. Scarlett stared up at him. His eyes were wide. For the first time since she'd met him, Paul looked a little scared. Scarlett smiled. Paul's eyes locked on her. There was death in them. "Melissa?" he growled. "Are you doing this?" Scarlett didn't answer. She just watched. "Let me down," Paul demanded. "Let me down, or—" His arm twisted, curling in on itself with a sickly snapping sound. Paul screamed. The other arm folded in on itself. Paul screamed louder. The legs came next. Paul screamed and screamed. When all 4 limbs were bent and broken, there came a final sickening snap. Paul's head twisted all the way around. The corpse that used to be Paul fell off the ceiling. It almost landed on Scarlett, but she managed to scramble out of the way. She stayed on the floor, shivering and shaking. After a few moments and several deep breaths, she managed to reach up and wipe away some of the blood that had been pouring out of her broken nose. "Thank you," Scarlett said to the empty air. "Thank you, Abigail. Does this mean we're friends?" A terrible force ripped Scarlett off the floor. The ceiling rushed to meet her. Scarlett screamed.